We'd like to give a big thanks to this week's sponsor, Philosopher Oats. Question reality with every bite. Use our coupon code PHILOSOPHILES to get 20% off on your next order. Once again, big thanks to the guys over at the Philosopher Oats for making our podcast profitable. In this episode of the Philosophiles, we will discuss the question, what does it mean to live a virtuous life? We will compare arguments and use philosophers' points of view to enrich our answers. And as always, there is no correct answer, only what we agree on.
Before we begin with our conversation, we are going to give a few definitions to contextualize what we are going to discuss.
Yes, the first one is the definition of virtue, which Aristotle defines as a disposition to behave in the right manner.
The second definition is eudaimonia, which can be translated as the life of virtue or living in accordance with reasons, man's highest function.
This can also be translated as happiness in more simple terms.
With this out of the way, we can better understand how to answer the question that we have proposed. What does it mean to live a virtuous life?
There are many philosophies that can seek to give an answer to this question, but today we would like to discuss the extremes and a middle ground.
The first two that we would like to discuss and contrast are cynicism and hedonism. These two can be quite the opposite path to achieve the same goal of happiness and virtue. I will be arguing in favor of the cynics, like Diogenes, and Santiago will be in favor of hedonists, like Epicurus.
I would like to start by stating the basic philosophy of hedonism, which states that the way to happiness is by fulfilling one's desires and maximizing pleasure over pain. So if I desire to buy the best things or the most delicious food, it would be in my best interest to do so, as that would maximize my pleasure.
In contrast, the founder of the school of cynicism, Diogenes, was a man that rejected all possessions and everything he considered unnecessary in life. If you take as an example the rate of happiness in the top percentage of wealthy families and the rate of unhappiness in the lower percentage, you would see that the people living closer to how Diogenes lived consider themselves to be happier than someone who is never satisfied with what they have.
Well, the creator of hedonism, Aristippus, believed that the good life was found when pleasure was the highest and pain the lowest. He was the first of Socrates' students to demand pay for his teachings. With this in mind, we could say that to a hedonist, a virtuous life is one that maximizes the amount of pleasure and happiness to oneself and others.
While having stuff now maximizes pleasure, in the future all of those things will lose its pleasure and you will be left with pain and wanting. Cynicism is about being happy no matter what you have, therefore eliminating the wanting and diminishing future pain.
I believe that the idea of happiness with nothing, while utopic, is unrealistic, and many people will never agree with that belief. It is natural for people to want things and to try to maximize their pleasure.
There's a saying that I quite like and I agree with. He has the most who is most content with the least, by Diogenes. It shows a mentality of completeness and it has no room for greed.
Well, if both of these approaches to happiness and virtue can be struck down so easily, then what is the key to happiness and living virtuously?
I think that going to the extremes is not going to result in a good life. We must find a balance between the two. And this is where I propose the philosophy of Aristotle. Aristotle's view is that some goods, for example, life, health, are necessary for happiness, and others like wealth, friends, or fame are extras that complete a good life for a virtuous person. But that is the possession and exercise of virtue, which is at the core of happiness.
I like that idea of finding only the necessary to attain happiness, but sometimes giving into desire and getting things that you fancy without being excessive.
In his book, Nicomachean and Ethics, he detailed a number of principles of virtues that one must possess to live a good life. Some of these are midpoints you have to attain, such as courage, which is the middle ground of cowardice and recklessness, or temperance, with which he says that the person who never drinks and the one who drinks too much are the same.
I agree, it should be a balance. For example, with hedonism and cynicism, you shouldn't overindulge in pleasure, but also not sell everything and start a life in the streets.
Yes, there should be no room for greed, as I said, but enough space for desire.
Exactly. I think we can agree that, like most things, a virtuous person should be able to see both sides of the same coin and understand which are the extremes a person can reach.
Well, I think that is the time we have for today, and I hope we can have another chat about philosophy another time.
Same. Thanks for having this conversation with me, and have a good one. See you.
See you.